I swear to tell the truth based on my professional work with this client. My name is Jen Baker. I'm a licensed clinical social worker in the state of Maryland. I hold a master's in social work with focus in substance use treatment from the University of Maryland, Baltimore. I currently work at the Second Chance program, where I help individuals overcome addiction and trauma using evidence-based practices and client-centered care. I have worked with Ms. Billings since October 13, 2024, right after her son George was removed from her home. And since then, Ms. Billings and I have met every week for individual therapy sessions. Ms. Billings also participates in group counseling, parenting classes, trauma-focused care. Ms. Jean has stayed sober throughout that process. She's followed all of our treatment recommendations, and she recently started a parenting class for parents with children who specifically have mental health needs or emotional needs. At this time, my position is that I don't believe that Jean's parental rights should be terminated at the moment. Instead, I would recommend that the court consider pausing the TPR process and allowing Ms. Billings to continue on her recovery, and also consider supervised visitation if and when George is comfortable with that. With respect to George's the trauma George has experienced with his mother, she's made real progress. Losing custody of her son, I believe, was a turning point for her, and since then she's fully committed to her recovery and being a better parent. Her progress definitely meets the standards for Maryland Family Law 5-323D, which states that the courts must consider whether a person is trying to fix what caused the removal. Also, court cases like Rashawn and Tyrese H. reminds us that termination should only happen after a parent is looked at for their current and future ability to safely care for the child. I have a balanced view. I always put the child's safety first, and I also support families reconnecting when a parent is showing so much positive change, like Jean. Her decision to take specialized parenting classes shows how serious she is about understanding her son's needs. I believe, and as a social worker, I'm bound by the NASW Code of Ethics, and I believe in treating my clients fairly and with respect, and promoting growth and protecting children. And my job is just to give an honest and fair opinion based on the facts and clinical observations. And in this case, Ms. Billings has made a considerable amount of voluntary efforts. For one, she's entered treatment voluntarily. She cut ties with people who were harmful. She's made good decisions to support her recovery. She's actively working to become a better parent. Ms. Billings understands that it takes time to rebuild. I don't believe that the best thing is to rush George or Ms. Billings into full reunification. George has experienced a tremendous amount of trauma living with his mom, and he has articulated that he would like to stay with his grandparents, and I think that we have to respect that. But I also believe that Ms. Billings has shown that she's serious about her recovery, and that's why I would ask that the court allow time for us to really see the progress over a period of time that Jean is going to make, and how George and his mother interact now that she's in recovery, and now that there are boundaries and supports in place. I believe that Miss Billings has the right to show her son and prove to her son that she's changed, and I believe that George deserves an opportunity to decide whether or not he wants to have a relationship with his mother at this new place in her life. So in summary, I ask the court to pause the TPR process, allow supervised visitations if and when George is ready, and to document the progress over a period that the court sees
Yes, I vow to tell the truth and the complete truth based on my assessment of this case. Hello, I am Martina Green, MS. I am a high school guidance counselor. I have a certificate in the National Board of Certified Counselors, and I have a master's degree in school counseling for the University of Maryland, College Park. I have been working with George Billings for a total of 7 days. George Billings was referred to me by his teacher when she noticed that he was significantly declining academically. During my initial assessment with Mr. Billings, he disclosed that his mother was taking his medication that was prescribed to him to help him focus more in class and was selling it to receive funds to get high with her boyfriend. George also disclosed that his mother, Jean Billings, was abusing him. Based off of my findings of this case, I reported the appropriate information to the Department of Social Services and Child Protective Services to the caseworker of Jesse Gates on October the 6th, 2024, via phone conversation, and a written follow-up was conducted on October the 7th, 2024. I learned that George Billings was still in his mother's care after the abuse allegations were reported a week prior. This has led my prompt response to contact Jesse Gates. Therefore, the emergency child in need of assistance court ordered the Social Department of Social Services and Child Protective Services to remove George Billings from his mother's home October the 12th, 2024. According to CINA, if the Department of Social Services can prove that a child has been abused or neglected, the child's parents or guardians or custodian do not give proper care and attention to the child's needs, court will find a child in need of assistance, CINA. CINA is a mission to achieve a permanent placement for the child that is consistent with the child's best interest, in which has been the case for George Billings. My testimony is based upon the American School Counselors Association ethical standards. Testimony is based upon the American School Counselors Association's ethical standards that highlights the importance of ethical principles for a high school guidance counselor. As a high school guidance counselor, my professional responsibility is to report neglect and abuse of a child, and this ethical standard alone has guided my testimony.
Yes, I vow to tell the truth and the complete truth based off my professional knowledge on this case. Hi, my name is Christopher Smith, and I am a licensed clinical social worker here in the state of Maryland, where I received my bachelor's in social work from Salisbury University and have been employed at Anne Arundel County Department of Social Services in their child welfare division for the past 8 years. As a licensed social worker, my practice is governed by the National Association of Social Workers Code of Ethics, which serves as an ethical standard for the profession. My decisions in this case are guided by several key principles, one of which is integrity 4.01 and competence 4.02. I am ethically obligated to provide a professional opinion grounded in facts, sound judgment, and child welfare standards. While I support the goal of reunification when safe and appropriate, I must also be honest about the current risks. I began working with Mr. George Billings and his family about 6 months ago when, on October 7th, 2024, my agency received a referral from his high school guidance counselor. This referral had allegations of suspected physical abuse as well as reports of Mrs. Billings taking and using and selling um, prescription medication that was prescribed to George to help with the fallout and effects that he was dealing with following the death of his father. And then on October 12th, we held a CINA, Child in Need of Assistance hearing, where George was ultimately removed from mom's care and placed with his paternal grandparents in Howard County, where he has had a safe and stable environment. Since then, Mrs. Billings has she's shown initiative to take care of the struggles that she was facing with her addiction since George was removed from her home. She entered a 60-day detoxification program, which she completed, and then entered into a transitional housing type situation where she is actively engaging in therapy, addictions counseling, parenting classes, as well as a work placement program, and ended a previously toxic relationship that she was in. She'd also had regular contact with George through the phone and had a few supervised visitations. But with all of that being said, Miss Billings does not yet meet the conditions to safely parent George. She lacks stable housing and employment, and George has expressed clear apprehension about returning to her care. Consistent with Section 1.15, interruption of services, and 1.01. My duty is to minimize the disruption and advocate for the continuity and safety in George's life. In conclusion, while I acknowledge and commend Miss Billings for her progress, at this time I cannot give a definitive yes or no of her rights being terminated. George's safety and emotional stability and voice must remain central to our decision. Continued services for Mrs. Billing and ongoing supervised visitation are appropriate, with reevaluation to follow once key stability benchmarks, housing, employment, and George's comfort are achieved. Thank you for taking the time to listen to me today.